everyone. Good afternoon. Hi,
Afternoon.
Matthias.
Hi,
Good to have you
Sean.
here.
How are
Hello.
you?
Yeah, great. And you?
Me too. Yeah.
Perfect. Let me see because I get an error message, of course. That's always if you're live. That's too bad. Let's see if I can fix it. Because on LinkedIn, apparently something happened. Um, what's happening? Not now. Okay, now it does say a check mark, so I think we're live now also on LinkedIn. I got an error message saying the event was cancelled, so not sure
Oh,
why, but
hope,
it
hope
wasn't.
not.
So hopefully, if you're watching on LinkedIn, you also see us now, and we're also broadcasting on YouTube, of course. So
Yes.
thanks for joining, Matthias, and
Thanks for having
great
me.
to have you here. Yeah, and we're going to talk about Chat GPT and how you can use it, or maybe not yet use it for Power BI.
Yeah.
And we're having a live session every week on Thursday, 4 o'clock. And if you like this, you can watch back also all the videos that we did before, some 128 of them on our YouTube channel. Most of them are in Dutch. I know that there are also some English-speaking people watching today, but we are also on YouTube with all the episodes. So, yeah, like I said, the topic is on ChatGPT, but maybe first, Matthias, for the people that don't know you, can you give a short introduction of what you typically do? And
Yeah, I can do that. So my name is Mathias Halkjær. I work as a principal architect at a European company called Fellowmind. You should see it down
yeah,
here.
here, here,
Um,
here.
exactly. Um, I am a all-in-all data enthusiast. I really love Power BI, Azure Synapse, SQL Server, anything around data platforms and cloud data platforms. And
Mhm.
I'm just very curious about new technologies, especially technologies as powerful as OpenAI and ChatGPT and all the generative AIs we're seeing these days. It's a wild
Yeah,
time to be
it
alive.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It goes very fast, and we also saw it in the number of people that registered to watch this event because it was a record number for us, 130 people. And I also did a small poll last week, I think, asking, "Are you already using ChatGPT for Power BI?" I think it was last Monday. And then
Mhm.
I think the results until now was 20% yes, which was already quite high. And 80% said not yet, but I'm very curious.
Yeah.
So there is absolutely, yeah, people are very curious. So what we're gonna do, Matthias, is we're gonna discuss a couple of use cases. You're gonna share some examples on yeah where you can use it for. So let me share your screen and
Yep.
then yeah talk us through it what you have discovered until now, and
Absolutely.
and everyone who is watching, you can just use your comments. It's nice if you say hello, then we see that everything is working. Because I was a little bit worried because I got an error message. Let us know if everything is working okay, and ask you questions if you have them. That is also possible. So I have added your screen now, and indeed 4 months later. Why do you say 4 months later?
4 months later, because this is 4 months since I did the first speak, which is also the only one I've done around this topic of ChatGPT and Power BI. And a lot has happened the last 4 months. So I think
Yeah,
it's a really good time and a really good chance now to look at what can we do now and what can we do
yeah,
new things. And gave you a sneak peek. You know about it. I brought like a little world premiere of something I was
yeah,
not able to do 4 months ago, but was able to do this time. So I'm
yeah.
curious to be showing that. I think it has potential. I don't know exactly what use cases, but yeah, we will see. There's a little bit of a surprise here.
And that's also what the technology is about, trial and error and new
Absolutely.
creative ideas it brings. Yeah, that's the nice thing about the solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
hope that the audience out there feel open and calm about maybe also asking questions, maybe even come suggestions with use cases we could try to do live. I mean, it's with ChatGPT, even what I prepared, I can never be certain will work the same way next time around. So everything
yeah,
is already a bit new. So if you have
Yeah.
new suggestions or things you try out, I think we should do it. But I have also brought a list of interesting things. Oh, there's a bit of an echo, Sean.
Oh, is there? Oh, let me try if I can fix it. I will put my sound a
As
little
long
bit
as it's not
softer.
for the audience, I'm
Yeah.
okay. But for me,
Yeah.
I'm just good. It's also for the audience. Anyway,
Yeah.
so as we already said, I'm Mathias Halkjær Petersen. Apart from what I already mentioned, I'm also a Microsoft MVP. I'm a parent and foodie, casual gamer, tech enthusiast. I also run a personal blog called FluxBI. And if I'm showing something that is interesting today, for example, some code in Power BI or something like that, I do plan on releasing that in the blog, at least in a very short form this evening. So if you have some code from what we're showing today that you want to reuse, FluxBI will be the place to find it. I think Jeroen will also be able to share it on his platform as well. Apart from that, I also run the Power BI quiz and the data platform quiz. Try to do it once per month. Cozy, little, nice, and easy way to have a little bit of learning, but do something fun around these two areas and these two tools. But enough about me. So before we go into the use cases, I would like to talk about quickly what is ChatGPT, because a lot of people have heard about it. Also, a lot of people have tried it out. Fewer people are using it, and also not everyone, including myself, understand it fully. But I'll give you at least some of my understanding of what's going on in ChatGPT. Very briefly, though, talk about when it's applicable to use it. A little bit about prompt engineering, and then we get to what I think is the main event for today: the use cases. So let's go through the other one. So what is exactly ChatGPT? ChatGPT is, of course, a large learning model, so LLM, large language model created by OpenAI. Its intended use was for language, but it's just the pattern recognition in language has blown so many back, because understanding language seems to be the key to understanding also some of the logic behind the language. So it can even do stuff like coding, math, programming, stuff like that. Very, very interesting. But yet it is an engine for generating human-like tests, and it's a pattern matching engine. So it doesn't do any thinking. It doesn't have intelligence. It just takes an input and tries to predict what is the best output based on that input, which seems eerily close to intelligence sometimes. Behind the scenes, there's of course a lot of technology and science going on. Also science that I even doesn't comprehend yet. But what we can simplify it to is it's an engine who takes an input and then it starts generating one word at a time and validated that word in the context of all the other words that it created. So this is what it is. It's a language generator. With 175 billion parameters, which is a lot. So when should we use this? There's of course a bunch of questions you should consider if you want to use this, and of course trying it out is usually harmless, but there are some things I think you should consider. So first of thing, what you're using it for. Is it important that this needs to be factually correct? For example, if you're running some code, yes, it matters if it's correct or if it's not correct. But if you're wanting new ideas, you're brainstorming something, it doesn't really matter if it's correct. It just matters if it can give you inspiration or help you be more creative around that. So that's, of course, a big difference here. And if it needs to be factually correct, of course, it's important that you have the expertise or capabilities to evaluate this correctness. Otherwise, you will just put things in production or send things to people that could have negative consequences that you're not aware of, or at least maybe some code that is breaking and not working, or queries messing up or something like that. So if you have that expertise to look at the output and say, no, this is bull something, well, then it's of course better. And finally, even if everything else is okay, you found a good use case, you have the capabilities to evaluate it. If you're about to share sensitive data with ChatGPT, you should really reconsider that this may not be the ideal use case for your case, because
They use it for learning purposes. Huh?
they use
So
it
they
for
say.
learning purpose. Now there are details here where I don't want to say if it's one way or the other, but if you have like a pro subscription, there is actually an option where you can say, don't save any of my history, don't use it for learning. You can
They
click
added
that.
that 2 weeks ago, right? 2 weeks ago they
Yes,
added that.
yes.
And that was one of the
How
reasons
secure,
that Italy, yeah.
exactly, and how secure it is, we don't really know. We just have to trust them. So the easy way here is, if you're in doubt, ask your IT department if you can do this with the sensitive data, and they will probably give you an answer.
Say no.
Yeah, they will probably say no.
Now,
But
be
yeah,
aware of that, and I think that's a very great, easy flow. People are not always aware of this, so good to start with that. Yeah.
I think, yeah, those 3 important considerations, because
Yeah.
I see a lot of use cases where people use it for something that needs to be factually correct, and maybe it's people new in an industry, and they're just like, oh yes, copy paste, this should be fine, and they have no idea what they just copy pasted. That's problematic, but such a good engine for creativity and getting new ideas. So how do we do it? So this was why and when we should do it, but how do we do it? I stole some guidance from the very newly announced Microsoft documentation for OpenAI. It's actually a pretty good documentation, so I can recommend giving that a look. But be specific, be descriptive, double down, even if there's something very important. Don't be afraid of saying it twice or thrice or 4 times. It will just emphasize the point to the engine. Order matters. So in which order we add the components of our prompt matter. More often than not, adding the actual request is best to do as the last thing, because the model has some sort of memory. It's not memory, but it puts more importance on the latest things. So if you add the request in the bottom, you get better results than in the top. And finally, you can give the model an out. If you don't know this, please say I don't know instead of trying to guess, because it will try to guess if you don't give it an out in any way. So just good hints here. And when we talk about the different parts of a prompt, it can be a good idea to look at it as primary content, supporting content, examples, and cues. So primary content would be the text you wanted to do something with. For example, I'm reading this blog. Copy paste in that whole blog, and then you say, please summarize. So the primary content would be the blog that you're copy pasting in. Or if you say, I want to write something on this topic, and then you write the topic, then your primary content is the topic that you're telling ChatGPT. If you wanted to write in a specific way, you can give it examples. This is how I did this before. For example, this is my 5 previous LinkedIn posts. Please use the same way of speaking, the same tone of voice, and then continue with that. And it will be easy. It will have an easier time understanding what you want from it, because you give it examples. And finally, the cue of what you want it to do. And supporting content is everything around it. So if you gave it a blog post and say, please summarize, you could also add, but I want you to put emphasis on these 5 main points. So this is extra context to it. And I think we can do a lot about this supporting context. I take inspiration in the classical communication model for this. I say, if we tell it who the role of the ChatGPT itself is, it's the sender. In this case, it could be an expert of data modeling. The format, you should write a blog post. The purpose, to sell to someone. Topic, well, here we have the primary content. So this is a fancy new dataset auto-documented tool or something like that. Well, that's the topic. Recipient, so it knows who to write to, and action, what it needs to do. And the last part, the action, of course, is also the cue, is actually quite important, because I have an example here where I wrote an action where I said, please help me write a blog post. And that was a problem, because I don't have the slide here, sorry. But I asked it to help me. So what it did was, it didn't write it for me. It started saying, okay, let me help you. Here are some good pointers of how to get started. Maybe get a cup of coffee, make sure that you're sitting comfortable, that you're happy, and in a good mindset. And then here, no, that's not what I wanted. then I changed it to please write it for me, and then it did that.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
very literal. It will do what you ask it for, like some sort of computer system, because it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes very funny. Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes in a very funny
Yeah.
way. Indeed. We have a limitation whenever we use GPT, and we have a limitation of the size of input. Many people think that this is a limitation on the size of characters or the size of words. It's actually neither. It's the size of tokens. And tokens are a mix of characters and words. So some of the commonly used words they will have in the database as a single token that can be reused, as you see here in the drawing. But other things will be a token even for one single character. So for example, a date, it is actually better to write October 18th, 2022 than to do the 10-18-2022. So there's there's some ways you can tweak this. It's hard to know what exactly is a token, which also means if you're running to the limit, it can be very hard to say exactly how many characters you need to remove. But as you see here, we went from 4 months ago, we had 2,000 tokens. Today we can go upwards of 32,000 tokens.
Yeah.
So very soon, I think the limitation will start to be non-issue for us.
But as a general rule of thumb, I always see that it is about 3/4 of a word. So you have to multiply this with 0.75, and that's the number of words. So 28,000 roughly is the number of words you can now input for both the question and the answer combined.
I think that's a good rule of thumb. And yes, it's those combined. So
Yeah.
you may limit the amount of answer you can get if you write too much text.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the
use cases.
introduction. We get to interesting things now.
Now the fun part starts. No, it's good to be aware because people are not always aware of indeed the importance of prompting, and we cannot overstate that enough. Prompting is everything. That's where it starts, and I think it's going to be a whole new skill set, to be honest. Asking the right questions. Make the best use of it.
Absolutely. And there are people who are working full-time these days where all they do is they call it prompt engineering. I'm not too sure if it's adequate to call it engineering, but they do prompt design, and they use code and Python and to program their way out of finding the best prompts for this use case for maybe millions of users in a product and stuff like that. Duolingo is a very big user of prompt engineering. But use cases for Power BI.
Yeah.
Yeah, I brought some here today, which I think are the most interesting ones to start with. And there's more than we can cover in this session, and I think there's one that's maybe more interesting than the others, so we should have proper time for that. But what I looked through the last time was that it was okay to help with some data loading, data modeling, report design, and these things, but it was not very powerful. You had to still do a lot of fine-tuning and troubleshooting yourself with the code. But I found that I think it's become way stronger with GPT-4 than it has ever been.
Okay, so you see an improvement versus 4 months ago in that also.
Absolutely, both for the standard model, which has become maybe not much better, but very, very much faster.
Yeah,
I mean, you will almost get it like instant text now if you write a question to the
just
old
defer
model.
per day. Yeah, sometimes it's indeed in a flash. It's the full answer already. Sometimes still typing. Depends on the busy. How busy
But
it
if
is.
you go to the new model,
GPT-7, then it's faster. Yeah.
it will be
Can you give
slower.
a couple of examples? Do you have some examples with you to showcase now how would that then work in reality?
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
So let's start with the very simple. Let's start with a very simple thing, so people who haven't used this before maybe just get a feel of what you're doing in ChatGPT. So just go to the site chat.openai.com, create a user, and then you can start asking questions. So you can do something simple as writing, "Hi, please introduce yourself," or something like that. And it will start writing. hello, I'm ChatGPT, and so on and so on. So it answers
And
questions.
currently you are in 3.5, so on the top you can change it to GPT-4 also, because this is the one that was released in January, and you can change it if you want. You see
But
it on the top
GPT-4
of the
is
model.
only for like if you have a pro subscription. So most users will have
It
the
is.
default.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, yeah.
If you have a pro subscription, you have this where you can change model.
Yeah.
And GPT-4 can do more advanced things, but yeah, we can try to do an example of, say, hey, I want to load some data.
Yeah.
From a SQL database, what info do you need from me to write the M code for Power Query?
Yeah.
Something like that. And now I have a hope that it will start asking me questions. This is something that it's sometimes not so good at. It really wants to.
Yeah.
It's like an eager junior consultant. It really wants to give me an answer. Okay, it's asking me relevant questions. This is good. So I'm going to go get my database name here for it. So server, database name, and I can start writing while it finishes its text.
Yeah.
That's nice. Authentication method.
No,
I will be using Microsoft.
Yeah.
And table names. Let's start with, because it's called sales customer sales order detail. I know that there's such a table. So let's start there.
Yeah.
And I already asked it earlier to write the M code. So I'm kind of curious if it will remember this from before.
Probably it does.
Probably it does, because it does take the whole context of our conversation into its input.
Yeah.
So now I am very, very curious. We can create a new Power BI report.
It's nice to also add really a code block, which you can then copy easily. Yeah. It's now creating the M code. Yeah.
So it gave us some M code.
Yeah.
I'm very curious about this one, because this is not something I think I see often. I wonder what.
Okay.
I wonder
that's the risk. Sometimes it hallucinates.
It can even
thinks of new terms.
It can even come up with things that are not existing at all sometimes.
No. Yeah.
So
that's where the knowledge step comes in. You have to be aware. Okay, sometimes you have to check it, and it's a starting point. Yeah.
So I think there was something wrong with this part. It's adding a native query. This is not exactly what we wanted it to do. But we can try and not have to troubleshoot a lot, but we can go and say this, we get this error. Also, you are using native query. Please don't just load the whole table.
Always apologizes.
It's
so
always apologizing. I also find myself always saying, please, please do this. Please do this.
Maybe it helps. You never know. Is it better?
Nah. I'm not sure. We'll find out.
Yeah. That's what it is. You have to. It's trial and error. It helps you out also in the error handling.
But we can try to remove this one.
Yeah, try it.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it had this weird implicit thing that it wasn't supposed to add, but it worked.
Yeah. You have data.
I have data. So I could go and say, okay, but I have more data than that. I actually have a whole bunch of data on my data warehouse. I have here all these tables. I don't have the query anymore. No, that doesn't matter. So I say, let's say I go to the sys databases and I get a list of all my tables from the database. I can actually go here and ask it.
Yeah.
Just do it like this. Oh. Yes, I can go here and ask it. Now we'll just repeat something from earlier. This is a list of all the tables. I wanted to turn it into a star schema model. Please help me draft a proper model. And I can just give it a list of all the tables. I think that's an interesting starting point. So let's try to do it from a new and see what it gives us. So it started generating a model, and it actually considers very much the context of what we're writing. So sometimes the output will make a lot of sense, and again, sometimes it will be a bit off. But here it's saying, well, we can do a fact table for sales order detail. We can do these dimension tables. I'm a little disappointed that it did not talk about merging sales order details with the sales order header into one table. It has actually done that before when I asked it a similar question.
Example. Yeah.
But I mean, this is a basic answer, and it's not completely wrong. And it even helps you say what are the relationships to that.
Yeah.
It's a very good starting point. I can then go and say, okay, well, we know now I have one example of how to load in one. Again, I can give it examples like we talked about earlier. I can say here, okay, using this example, you don't have to call it example, I just didn't know what else. Please write the proper Power Query M code to load in, and we'll say something like customer products, and that's it. Let's just start from there. And in that way, I can have it help us write some more code. So it can be used to help write code, DAX, Power Query, SQL, and so on. Python, I've heard it's very strong in as well. So if we're new to the program,
the nice thing about this, because people on the one hand said, oh, it's going to replace all the programmers. Now we see you still need them at this time. but it also helps you to learn things, right? You use it also for learning purposes, right, Mathias?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because these are straightforward examples, but you can ask everything,
Yeah. So we'll just run. I see the time is becoming a bit short. So we'll just go through some other examples here without actually doing it in Power BI.
Yeah. Just show the old.
And then we have the big thing in the end. So there's like help with modeling. Yeah, it actually does that pretty well. It doesn't always do logical things. I mean, it helped out create a good starting point for a data model schema. I have had it help try to a different example where it had a one big table and had to turn it into a star schema. Implement slowly changing dimensions. Also, it does wacky things, but it kind of gets the job done in some of the things. And you can ask it things to fine tune. But anyways, this is getting into detail. So different example. Asked it to help me design a report. So I asked here is a topic. I want to write something about sustainability and CO2, and I want to make a good data story for a dashboard for this topic. And it gave a lot of pretty good pointers. It didn't really specify what are pages in Power BI and what are just if everything needed to be in one page or in several pages. But it's a lot of good ideas that you can pick and choose from. So I challenge it and say, do we want all this information in one page? And then it kind of again, it apologized again.
Yeah.
And then it boiled it down to what seems to be fitting into one page. But if you ask me, this is still a lot of information in one page. So I think it's a good tool for inspiration and for ideas. But I think also it will never actually understand what it says and what that means in like a graphical layout. So if you actually follow this, and it does make sense logically. So it's like this one horizontally on top, two small charts side by side, and everything you could put in a report. But I think it would be so cluttered from all these things.
Yeah. We get some questions, Matthias, and I always want to give space to that also.
Yeah.
Uh, um, so now this is a very broad question that I'm gonna include it anyway. Daniela, thank you for watching. So if you're a novice in Power BI, now let me maybe rephrase it myself, this question. Is that ChatGPT maybe a good option for people that are just starting in Power BI? I wonder, to start using it.
Yeah, that's a
What do you
really good
think?
question. I
Yeah,
cannot give you an answer, but I can help speculate and argue. So I said it in my like decision tree thing here. If you don't have the expertise to know what is right and what is wrong, you may have a lot of unintended consequences of what you do.
yeah,
That is a risk. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but it's a risk. On the
yeah,
other hand, if you go and Google a blog post and you find some code snippet with some explanation and you try to use it and it doesn't work, you may have the same problem. So I don't think it's a
yeah,
unique problem for ChatGPT, but I think it's
yeah,
something we should be careful about, because if you skip that step where you
yeah,
feel you have to learn the things and understand the inner workings yourself and just think you can go directly to solution and only stay in that mindset of the solution, I think you will very, very quickly in your personal learning, you will hit a barrier
yeah,
where it will be hard to learn more because you will lack so much fundamental knowledge
yeah.
that it will be hard to troubleshoot beyond a certain
Yeah.
point. So
So
very good for
Daniela, maybe do a training. We provide training, so have a look at this. Where is it? There, this website, and we're
I
happy to
mean,
help you with the first steps. Yeah,
when you're in solution mode, use it for
yeah, of
you
course.
can use it
Yeah,
for ideas and
yeah,
finding possible
yeah,
solutions.
yeah,
But but you should not forget about learning
yeah.
and
True.
yeah.
Yeah. Ronald, nice that you're watching also from Curaçao. Yeah, how do you use it? I think we're gonna go there next, Matthias, because
Mhm.
you already announced a little bit to say, hey, I discovered something new, which I think is very cool. Now, if I can even use my World Premiere uh, animation for that. So I keep that, Ronald. But let's quickly go to the other questions. Ahmed also has a nice question. How would you use ChatGPT for Power BI, especially when it comes to design, assigned from colors? Do you use it? Did you try it out for that also? Hey, you already hinted a little bit on it before.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried it for reports. I've used it for visual suggestions. I've used it for trying to suggest colors, maybe design guidelines. The problem is that um, the ChatGPT is made to make words that looks good. So if you ask them those questions, the answer will often look very reasonable and good. But if you actually try to follow the recommendations, often they will not actually make sense visually, because if you ask me,
Mm.
it doesn't seem like ChatGPT has a sort of a meta view of what the how what it's talking about would look like. It cannot
Mm.
imagine the visual representation of the words it's saying, because it's just a
No,
model.
but also that is in development, and I tried another tool called Midjourney, and you have
Yeah.
from OpenAI, you have DALL-E, for example. So you have this
Mm.
text to image also, and when you try out Midjourney and you say, make me a design of a dashboard for this and this industry, for example, it will come up. And it's always very funny because if you say for Power BI, it always creates a yellow and black dashboard colored
Yes.
dashboard. So
And
you
that's
really
because
interpret it.
that's
Oh,
what it
Power BI
does.
dashboard. Oh, that must be yellow and black.
Exactly. It does
That's very
pattern
funny.
matching. So that's what it does.
Yeah.
You say Power BI and it starts thinking about the logo instead of thinking about the tool. Makes
Yeah.
sense in some
So,
way.
shall we go? Because also Nienke is very interested, because indeed in Excel you can use ChatGPT, but you just before we started the live, you said, "Hey, but I found something cool. How
Yeah.
can we integrate ChatGPT in
So
Power
let's
BI?" But so
push the
if you
cool.
can open that, then I will press the button for the world premiere. Okay?
Let's push the cool
This
thing
is
2 minutes
amazing.
because I want to say
Oh,
one important thing
oh yeah,
about
sure.
so before we talk about technical and data in Power BI. Outside of Power BI, the whole context about you can have maybe migration plans, project plans, you need to do documentation, you need to write emails to customers, clients, maybe internally in the organization. Everything about writing text is what
Yep.
ChatGPT does best. So if you want
True.
tips to some of these things, definitely consider using it there because that's where it's strong.
Yep.
Not for final products. So like write me a whole blog post for LinkedIn. That doesn't work because it's just not high enough quality. But again, fine tune or give you new ideas or the different possibilities. Give me like 5 examples of a project plan for migrating from on-prem Power BI to a Power BI service. It will actually
And
do
I
it
think
like no
the nice thing is that you can follow up questions. So first you say, give me the basic outline, and now for point number 1, give me 10 detailed points within that single.
Yes.
You can have it's a chat.
Yeah.
So you can further fine tune it. Yeah.
But here again, even more important that you actually know what it's saying. But otherwise, because otherwise, suddenly you've started a project in your organization based on a project proposal from an AI model, and no one understands why you need to do certain tasks, and maybe they don't make sense. So again, use it as a productivity tool to do things faster, but make sure that you're the driver, you're the human in the loop that does the final quality checks on the text output. But
So
yes,
we're
so
going to the
time
world
for the
premiere,
reveal.
because indeed, yeah,
Yes.
because Laila indeed showed it as one of the people that showed in Excel how to use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
But you have it now also in Power Query in Power BI. So here it is.
World premiere.
Yes. So
Not sure whether it's a world premiere, but I have not seen it before. So
probably making out to be a bigger thing than it is. But I wanted to do this back when I did the first session because I think this is a cool use case. I just couldn't make it. I couldn't finalize it last time, but this time around I had help. Can you guess who helped me actually make this work?
yeah, ChatGPT, of course.
GPT-4, yes. I turned to GPT itself and said, please help me make this work. What I made work is I can now have a function in Power Query, and you're allowed to see the whole function. And this is also the one I will put on my blog later today. It's actually a quite simple API call
Can you
function.
zoom in a little bit, Matthias, with window
Yes,
plus? And we can.
absolutely. There you go.
Thanks.
It's a
Great. Yeah.
simple API call function where it has an input as a text. It uses the endpoint with the API key. You need to use your own API key if you want to use this yourself. And then
Yeah.
it
So for
gets
people that don't know it, ChatGPT, that's the front end. But in the back end, you have an API key that you can create. You have to pay for each call. You have a free 2 months limit or something, or a couple of calls that you can
and
use for
I
free.
think
But then after that, you pay, a cent per call or something.
much
That's the price.
much less even. I
Oh,
think I did
yeah, per
a
thousand characters.
a few thousand
Yeah.
calls tokens I did yesterday, and that was like
All right.
it was 5 cents for me yesterday.
Oh, it's even cheaper. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's but and they're
Yep.
pretty good at you have top limits. You can say I will never want to be charged more than $50
Yep.
a month. They're very
Yep.
good about
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Anyway, so
So
here's the cool.
first you have this key. Here you enter the information. Yeah.
Yeah, and there you have
That is.
the important one here in the prompt.
Yeah.
So here in the messages, you have the prompt, which is the variable of the function. So that means that everything else is handled. I just need to give it an input. So in
Yeah.
Power Query here, and it's just again the same. Hey, oi,
Yeah.
I need to zoom out because it keeps doing this.
Yeah, that's okay. Zoom
Say
out.
here, hi, please introduce yourself. So it's the same engine, it's the same
Yeah.
ChatGPT. And I can do it here from within Power BI. Please introduce yourself, and you will see the output in just a second. Yeah, I am an open AI language model by OpenAI, and so forth, so forth. So output, and the cool thing here is I can use this again. So this is a function, so I can go to something like my product page, and I can invoke this function for each row. So I just go and click add column, invoke function, and I can invoke it here and say I want to use the ChatGPT function. I can give it a name, function new, I don't know. And I can give it an input. For example, the column name of the product name. And then I can change the input up here. So I can say, what do you think about, and then this name. So I actually can use my data in the prompt, and it will start to do this. And it takes some time. So that is a limitation.
Yeah, because for every row it will then query the GPT, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and
so you don't need to do that at 10 million rows. That will not be smart.
Absolutely not. You want to keep this at a limited row. So that already ruins a lot of use cases, because even tables with thousands of rows, it becomes a problem, because both it takes a little bit of time, but more so because Power Query doesn't handle parallelization really well. So it's not like you can call all the API calls, even though OpenAI backend could handle all of those at the same time. You cannot do it. Power Query will force a one-by-one sort of thing.
But nevertheless, it opens a lot of possibilities, because you showed me an example of the quality. Yeah,
I will show this example. First example here is I gave it the context.
Can you zoom in a little bit, Mathias?
Yes,
sorry.
Absolutely. I gave it context. I put the data product name into the prompt. I gave it the product category and subcategory also in the prompt, and then I told it to write a short one-liner to use for marketing. And this is the output. For each of the rows, it gave like a marketing speech for that specific product. So stay safe and stylish on the slopes with our Sport 100 helmet in striking red, ultimate accessory for any adventure seeker. So I can suddenly use my Power BI data inside ChatGPT prompt. Of course, it's a problem that we cannot use it on many rows. So I've tried to think about what could be use cases with few rows. And I have an example here as well, where I took so in Power Query, you can ask for the table profile. I'll zoom in. You can ask for table profile, which will give you metadata about your columns in a table. So this metadata, we went and told the GPT here, please help me evaluate the quality. And I gave it all the statistics as a data inside the prompt. And finally, I told it, please shortly describe the overall quality of the column, considering its name and statistics. So now we have an engine that will help us give like a human writing on the quality of that specific column. I mean, it doesn't have human gut feeling and human common sense. So something like here, it does say that there's a problem with first name column, that it has inconsistent field values. But I mean, yes, first names will be different. They will be inconsistent. That's not something. That's something we know as human. But we can do even more than that. So I could take all these and merge them into one big column with all the data in one. Invoke ChatGPT again. So I can call it, use the output of ChatGPT as in my data to even generate new calls to ChatGPT. And here I can have it sum up the entire table into one output. I will have to zoom out here.
This is a great use case, right? Because instead of manually checking all the meta data of your columns and see if it makes sense, you can use this language model to do it for you.
And this is a rough starting point. And I wonder with more prompt refinement and finding the right way to ask the question, maybe tell it, please consider the column name and what that means in context. Maybe combine, if you already have a data dictionary or something like that, maybe it would understand even more context. then it becomes really powerful and could be something that helps us get a very quick overview of the data quality in our tables. I don't,
we also saw examples of documentation, right? That you can ask it to document the code. So, for example, if you have a dashboard for someone else and he wrote some very impressive DAX functions, you think, oh, what the hell does that mean? Then you can just put it in ChatGPT and say, can you add for every line a piece of comment, what it does in that step, right? That I think is also a great use case.
And I would love to credit whoever wrote the blog post, but I honestly don't remember. But there was a brilliant guy or girl who wrote a blog post about how you could do this in Tabular Editor and have it run across all the measures in your model, and then put a description in the metadata of what does it do. So you kind of auto-documented your whole model in a split second. Really genius.
I know that everyone is fond of writing documentation themselves, but if you don't, then this is maybe a nice solution. So we can talk for hours on this. I think. I hope you can come back sometime, maybe in 4 months, and see how GPT-5 how GPT-5 further improves on this, maybe. So I hope everyone who's watching that liked it. Thank you for the tip, William. On if you don't say Power BI but just dashboard in Midjourney, it will be already better. Yeah, I fully agree. And Ahmed is very I will try to find it, because I indeed saw it also on the tabular editor, and if I find it, I will add it into the comments for you to check out. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you liked it. If you did, don't forget to press the thumbs up, because that will give us huge visibility. Uh, no, thank you very much, Matthias, for your time and
for
for
having me.
showing some great examples of what can be done. And hope it inspires people to try it out themselves, and share it on LinkedIn and YouTube also, because we can learn from each other where you can use it already for, and but maybe not yet. Next week, we're going to be talking about our event, Power Play, because we are organizing our first ever Power BI event on June 15th in the Netherlands. I know that there's a lot of people outside the Netherlands watching today, but if you're living in the Netherlands, feel free to watch that episode, because we're going to be talking about about the program and location and all the details, and you can ask your question. So hope to see you there. And thank you everyone for watching again, and have a nice day, and maybe see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Matthias. Bye.
Thank you.